Okay, it's going to be a WWE pay-per-view rewind for 2024. So this is just going to focus on the premium live events only. But yeah, man, first part of the video, this is just going to focus on matches, match quality. This will be rapid fire in the beginning. It might be a little bit more in depth when we get to the end of the list. But I thought this would be the most interesting way to start the video. I think this was a year where I don't know if the match of the year is a home run. I think most years when you look back on it, it's pretty automatic. In most years it really is. But with 2024, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it. I think if you're measuring the match of the year, strictly from a wrestling standpoint, it's a little bit more uncertain. But hey, we're going to get right down to it. This is going to be 30 matches. At number 30, we got Damian Priest and Finn Balor teaming up together to take on Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. This is actually from Elimination Chamber. It happened a long time ago. Some people might forget about it, but very underrated match. Definitely the sleeper match from that show. It was cool to see Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate on a pay-per-view, on a premium live event. I think it's the only time they got a chance to shine, but like to see more guys like that, up-and-coming young guys that are very athletic and very talented, have the chance to steal the show. So good match right there from Elimination Chamber at number 30. At number 29, we got Sami Zayn defending the Intercontinental Championship against Chad Gable and Bronson Reed. This is from King of the Ring. Awesome stuff. This featured a lot of great feats of strength, double German suplexes, a lot of crazy shenanigans on the outside with Otis. But at the same time, man, these three guys rock the house. Really, really fun match right there with Sammy retaining the IC title. At number 28, we got Bayley taking on Piper Niven. This is from Clash of the Castle in Scotland. So this is Piper's hometown of Scotland. Good stuff. I think this is the most underrated Bayley match of last year. I think Bayley's title reign was really good, and yeah, Piper was really over in her home country. I thought her and Bayley, really clicked. Really fun match right there. At number 27, we have the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. This featured Drew McIntyre winning the Money in the Bank over Andrade, LA Knight, Chad Gable, Jey Uso, and Carmelo. Really fun match right here to open up Money in the Bank. Drew actually wins by throwing the ladder like it was a javelin at Jey Uso, and Drew tries to cash in later on in the night, but CM Punk stops him from doing it. So it was pretty cool. It was cool that they, used the Money in the Bank to kind of build to the Punk and McIntyre, spectacle at SummerSlam. So good way to start off Money in the Bank right there. That's at number 27. And number 26, we got CM Punk taking on Drew McIntyre. This is the strap match from Berlin. I thought this was good. I think in terms of the pacing and the brutality and the replay value, I think everything was there. I just wasn't crazy about the stipulation of having to touch each and every corner. I just think for a blood feud and a strap match of this degree, it just should have been one fall to a finish, but, still good stuff there. I think Punk looked a little bit better for some people here than he did in the SummerSlam match in terms of the pacing. So I would definitely agree with that. Number 25, we got Rhea Ripley taking on Becky Lynch to open up WrestleMania night one. Underrated stuff. I thought they rocked the house, and give these two women credit. They had to go out there in the wind and the cold while Becky Lynch is sick, and I still thought they got the job done. Just a very crappy atmosphere in terms of the weather, but give them credit. I still thought they kicked off WrestleMania with a bang. At number 24, we got Cody Rhodes taking on Logan Paul from King of the Ring. I thought this was a really fun match. I think Logan's interaction with Michael Cole calling him a loser for the brass knucks and all that stuff. And, Logan yelling at the ring announcer, like, who are you? And then Cody flips it around. He's like, I'm Cody Rhodes, bitch. I think he had a lot of fun stuff here. It feels to me like some of Logan's matches this past year, especially the one with Cody, like they're not getting the type of attention that the Roman match got. I think the Roman match really got people's, juices flowing because I think Logan was more of a, high flying babyface there. And I just think it was more of an exciting match. But, Logan was booked more like a badass or a chicken shit heel, badass heel, this year. Maybe that's why some of his matches didn't, generate as much praise as that Roman match from a couple years ago. At number 23, we got Damian Priest taking on Gunther. This is from SummerSlam. So this is where Gunther, wins the world title. He secured himself the title shot at SummerSlam by winning King of the Ring. I think these two definitely clicked. Underrated match right there. The Finn Balor stuff kind of bothered me more in this match than the other match, but shout out to Gunther. The fact that he actually won the world title at SummerSlam and cashed in on that King of the Ring stipulation. I love that stipulation. I hope they continue that for years to come, just like they did with Brock back in the day. So good stuff there. Number 22, we got the Bloodline, the new Bloodline of Solo, Jacob Fatu, and Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa. And Bronson Reed. Now, don't forget about him taking on the Roman Reigns, the Usos, Sami Zayn, and Mr. Punk from War Games. All right, so I think the argument against this match, I know some people found it a little bit tedious, a little bit boring, but from a storyline standpoint, I think a lot of the interactions between Punk and Roman definitely, the Paul Heyman stuff, Paul actually coming out there to actually hype the match and to get Punk and Roman to start teaming up together. I thought that was great stuff. A lot of injuries, though, man. A lot of guys ended up hurting themselves. Punk didn't get hurt here. And, it was a lot of the other guys that got hurt, including Tonga Loa got hurt from the Punk, toolbox situation there. Bronson Reed, the table bumps off the top of the cage caused a lot of problems. Let me see. The Bronson Reed one and Jimmy Uso, both of them ended up like really messing up their ankles. So it's just kind of a lesson to learn. Like, a lot of times when you do these big bumps off cages, the most important thing maybe to protect is when you come down on, make sure you don't mess up your feet or your ankles. So, it kind of, I just think this should be a big lesson to all the wrestlers that could potentially be, maybe the most dangerous thing you have to worry about when doing those spots. But, I thought it was good stuff. Punk actually saving, Roman was really, really cool. The storyline of them actually working better as a team throughout this whole thing was really cool. And, Heyman kind of turned the tide and really got Punk and Roman to align themselves. And, the beatdown on Solo to end this thing was pretty damn cool. It's a cool match. I'm not going to argue with some people if they think, maybe it was a little bit slow in some parts. And, I don't think doing War Games every year, you have to go in this direction. I like the fact that, maybe you can spice things up a bit and, go back to the traditional elimination matches some years. Some years you could do War Games. I don't think you have to do it each and every year. But hey, I think the War Games was definitely a success this year, no matter how you look at it. I thought it was a fun match. At number 21, we got Logan Paul taking on Kevin Owens, taking on Randy Orton. This is from WrestleMania. Logan retains the United States Championship, but it was fun though, man. I think he had a lot of fun stuff here with Randy and Kevin and Logan. Just a really fun match in terms of the high spots and the counter. At number 21, we got The Rock teaming up with Roman Reigns to take on Cody and Seth. This is the main event of WrestleMania, the first night, WrestleMania Saturday. Really the only time The Rock has wrestled this past year, and what was quite an eventful year for The Rock. I think when you look back on it, it definitely did deliver. I know some people are going to make the argument against it about it being too slow and too much fighting out into the crowd. But I think your best argument for this match is if you could compare it to the Survivor Series main event with Rock and Cena teaming up. It's the total opposite of that. This is an example of, Rock making a big special appearance, and it was still structured like it was a pay-per-view match. It took you on a ride. It was, they gave you a lot more than what they would normally give you at a house show. So, that house show argument for Survivor Series, you can't make that about this match. And, I think the match did deliver. I think Cody and Seth, there was some great teamwork between them. There was really some fun stuff here, and Rock really stole the show from, his charisma, his trash talking and yelling at the referee. It was definitely a memorable match. It's something that definitely unfolded. You know, you kind of have to put on your seatbelt and enjoy the ride, when you watch a match like this. But yeah, I thought it was cool, man. I think it definitely delivered. It was an interesting pivot. I really have a tough time buying into the fact that they were really going to pull the trigger on Rock and Roman. But hey, man, I thought it was definitely a cool matchup. It still makes you want to see, Rock and Cody down the road. How long are we going to have to wait? We might be waiting forever, but we'll see. At number 20, we got Damian Priest taking on Drew McIntyre. This is actually from Clash at the Castle. Hell of a main event right there. There were some botches here that I think, stole a lot of the buzz away from the match, but definitely a good environment. Once again, Drew at Clash at the Castle in the main event. This time he's in, his home country of Scotland. I just think there's a lot to like about this. Had a big time feel. The finishing stretch was awesome. Some of the kickouts here, especially from Priest out of the Claymore, were some of the best kickouts of the year. So it's kind of going a little bit underrated, a little bit under the radar, and very memorable finish here. What they did with Punk and the referee, and you didn't realize it was Punk until the very end. It was pretty damn cool. It was definitely one of the best moments of the year. Maybe Punk's best moment in a loaded year of, non-wrestling moments from CM Punk. So I got to the number 20. At number 19, we got Logan Paul taking on LA Knight from SummerSlam, the most overachieving match of the year. That match was exciting. It was fun. Some of these counters from LA Knight were pretty awesome, man. You got great interaction with, some of the celebrities out there, Machine Gun Kelly, even Logan's entourage. But yeah, I think Logan really brought it here. This was definitely an entertaining and fun match from SummerSlam. At number 18, we got Cody taking on Kevin Owens from Bash in Berlin. I think this is the kind of match where, predictability, a very predictable match, but if you could throw that out the window, these were some of the most, fun and most, not to take seriously fun, kickouts of finishers here. Just seeing Kevin, execute the stunner, everybody going crazy in the kick out. I mean, you didn't believe for 1 second that Kevin was winning this match, but, some of these kickouts here, screamed fun. Is, I think, the best way to put it. And then, I think what really put this match over the top for me is just a lot of the teasing. Cody had the bad knee. Kevin's contemplating going after it, but then he has a change of heart. You had a feeling a million times here that Kevin is going to resort to the old Kevin Owens and, demolish Cody here. And he doesn't really do it. He shows Kevin, he shows Cody a lot of, I don't know, sympathy, empathy. It just doesn't, he doesn't betray him the way he betrayed so many other guys in the past, like a Sami Zayn. So I thought it was a cool story here, man. But yeah, Cody and Kevin, Bash at Berlin, to open up that show. Maybe one of the more fun, maybe one of the funnest matches of the year. Number 17, we got Drew McIntyre taking on Seth frickin' Rollins. This is from WrestleMania, to open up WrestleMania Night 2. So yeah, the way they booked this was kind of interesting. This kind of felt like Seth was hurting more than we were led on to believe. I mean, we knew he was hurt going into this thing. You just didn't know how bad. You figured maybe he could get through it, but was he compromised? Punk even alluded to this on commentary, that Drew beat a compromised man. But the way they booked this was cool. It felt like a sprint. It felt like, as soon as the match started, we were kind of winding down to the finish right here. But, Drew wins the world title. They do the Punk stuff by the commentary table. Priest cashes in. It ended up being an awesome moment. This ended up being one of my favorite cash-ins, maybe ever. Maybe besides the Rollins cash-in and the first Edge cash-in, this might be up there as one of the more, memorable cash-ins. I think the WrestleMania factor had a lot to do with it. And they teased this the whole year, and you finally got it done with Damian Priest becoming champion. And if you haven't seen it yet, on Priest's documentary, there's an awesome scene of, Rock interrupting the celebration and just telling him, awesome, man. So that was a cool moment. Number 16, we got Sami Zayn taking on Chad Gable. This is actually from Clash at the Castle. It was pretty good stuff, man. This was going so well. This would have ended up being, maybe a top 10, match of the year. There was a little bit too much stuff with the Alpha Academy on the outside. Whether her name was Maxine, actually. Maxine, yeah, Tozawa wasn't out there, but Otis was out there. There was a lot of shenanigans going out there. The ankle lock spot was really, really cool, where it actually takes out Maxine. That was cool stuff. But in the ring, man, these two guys rocked the house. I thought you had great stuff there. The Chaos Theory, the Exploder. Just some great wrestling between Sami and Chad. Sami goes over, retains the IC title at Clash at the Castle. At number 15, we have the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. So I'll say this. I wasn't a big fan of a lot of the multi-women matches this year. I think the Rumble, I'll talk more about the Rumble later, but I just think for the most part that the Rumble was pretty weak. For a lot of it, we'll get more into that later. The women's elimination chamber was definitely a step up. I think it's a step up from the Rumble. What other the Queen of the Ring stuff just frustrates the shit out of me. But I'm not going to say it was awful. The War Games match, it was okay. I think it had enough good moments to justify being in that spot. But if you're going to ask me, what was the best, showcase for the women in a multi-woman match? I think the women's Money in the Bank is by far the best thing this year for the women. Tiffany Stratton goes over, but it was incredibly fun. Some incredible bumps. I think Chelsea really had a good showing. As well as Lyra Valkyrie, Zoe Stark, you name it. A lot of these girls, Naomi as well with that split. This was maybe one of the only times where you could definitely argue maybe the women, outdid the men at Money in the Bank. At number 14, we got Gunther, taking on Randy Orton. This is from Bash in Berlin. All right, so I got this at 14. Okay, so I was a little bit disappointed they went back to Orton in that spot, but I did think it made it a little bit unpredictable. I thought there was a possibility, Randy might take this thing because, I figured maybe he'd get his win back. We're coming off of the 20th anniversary of, Randy, being champion at SummerSlam, defeating Benoit. I could say it, so let me just say it. And I thought that would have been a cool time to put Orton as champion, but Gunther had just won the belt. So, that may have been a little bit far-fetched for people. But I think when people heard that Gunther was going to be in Berlin, in not necessarily his hometown, it didn't even resonate with me until after this that, Gunther is not really from Germany. I think he's from Austria. But, he made a name for himself in WXW in Germany. And the reaction here just kind of... I wouldn't say it baffled me. It just surprised me. The reaction was great for both guys. Fans were awesome here, but it wasn't like, the one-sided spectacle that I was expecting. I was expecting Gunther to have like 100% fan support. I thought Randy was going to get booed out of the building. I even thought Randy thought he was going to get booed too. Like in the beginning of this match, when he heard a little bit of boos, I was just like, oh, okay, he wants to embrace being booed, but it seemed like Orton got more and more over as the match progressed. The pop on the RKO here was even bigger than it was in Canada when he won the belt. So, but hey, man, I think the Gunther and Orton matches were really good. I think they were slow, but at the same time, in terms of the selling and the work rate, they were pretty damn good. Number 13, we got Solo and Tama Tonga making his premium live event debut to take on Owens and Orton to open up Backlash. Man, I actually came around this match from a crowd reaction standpoint. This is the best crowd of the year, especially in the opening match here, because they really weren't singing at this point. This crowd started to annoy me when they were just kind of singing, throughout most of the night. But for this match, they're just into everything. Everybody was over. Orton even got booed when he didn't do the high spot, when he teased it. So I thought that was funny. But huge win for Solo, though. This featured the debut of Tonga Loa. Heyman still on Solo's side here. Just incredible table spots, incredibly violent. Owens with the fisherman's driver on the chairs to Tama Tonga. I just think these guys rock the house. You just got a lot of good action. I mean, Jesus Christ, this is really the only time I can remember crowd reacting to just punches in the crowd. Because most of the time, when you see guys brawling in the crowd is not going to react to any sort of offense in the building, but they reacted to everything here. The crowd reaction was definitely incredible. I think, if you're going to, some people actually would go like all the way to the 5-star level for a match like this. I think it was definitely on its way. Like if this gotten a little bit more time, but just the way it ended so abruptly with the big surprise, I just don't feel like it ever had a chance of getting to, match of the year level. But it was pretty damn cool. And, probably the best thing Solo was involved with this year, from a match quality standpoint. At number 12, we have Drew McIntyre taking on Randy Orton, Kevin Owens, Logan Paul, Bobby Lashley, LA Knight, and the Elimination Chamber from Australia. It was pretty damn cool. The only time you see Lashley on this list. I think, the LA Knight stuff was cool. Yeah, I didn't think LA Knight looked great in this match, but, AJ attacked him. I think AJ's attack was definitely one of the more memorable things of this match. AJ's big return in Australia, taking out LA Knight. And then, I thought at the time this is a very unpredictable match. I thought, Randy Orton, will possibly get a title shot at WrestleMania. But the fact that they went with Drew over him, I didn't really expect it at the time, but I think they made the right choice. I think Drew had an awesome performance. He lasted the whole Elimination Chamber. Logan did his thing here, feuding with Kevin and Randy, screws Randy in the finish here, so Drew goes over. It was a pretty fun Elimination Chamber. This isn't going to hold up as one of the best or one of the worst. It was kind of just there, but it was still fun in the heat of the moment. At number 11, we have Io Sky taking on Bayley. This is actually from WrestleMania. Great stuff here. This is definitely the women's match of the year for the WWE. Io Sky performed beautifully, and Bayley, shocked the shit out of me too. I mean, I thought she was great here. Some of these near falls with the Rose Plant and the Bayley to Bayley, and some of the counters here were just out of this world. Io Sky, definitely the most entertaining woman I think the WWE has right now. So huge moment for Bayley. She's able to capitalize on that Royal Rumble, the WrestleMania title shot. So there we go with that. Number 11. Number 10, we got Cody taking on Gunther. This is from Crown Jewel, champion versus champion. Awesome match right here. I think it's going to go underrated because it's in Saudi Arabia. But that finish with the homage to Brett, it made all the sense in the world. I thought it was an awesome finish. Even the combination with Gunther, really still doing the Royal Rumble stuff where he's targeting Cody's torn pectoral with the chops. I think these two guys have great chemistry. I would still love for them to go back to this down the road, hopefully, if they ever do. But yeah, I think what was cool about this was Cody really sold the fact that he doesn't want to be known as the lesser champion. And so he called this match a must-win, just like it was at Backlash. So, and it's true. I mean, how many guys have you seen, while they've been champion, kind of relegated to not being in the main event of WrestleMania? I was trying to think about this, like who's the champion that really fit the criteria of being champion B as opposed to champion A? I think it's JBL. I think Cody wanted to avoid, being in that JBL spot of being the SmackDown champion or the B champion. Well, he is on SmackDown, but in this climate, SmackDown has the better champion or the face of the company. But that's not to say that he's still a great champion. You still have two great champions. But if you're going to pick one champion out of the two, you had to have Cody go over. So I understand that. It was definitely a great match from Crown Jewel. Definitely the match of the night from Saudi Arabia in November. At number 9, we have Braun Breaker taking on Sheamus, taking on Ludwig Kaiser. This is from Survivor Series. So, the interesting thing I wanted to say about this was, I think it's tough. I think it's tough in at Survivor Series when you have War Games for the guys not in the War Games matches to have good matches because they're having to wrestle in 2 rings. I mean, we've seen guys do it in WCW, but still, I think it's harder to generate that crowd reaction. So they were kind of smart here with the way they booked it. They booked a lot of this stuff as to be chaotic and, by the announce table, kind of out of the ring. And once they got back into the ring, you saw a lot of guys, make saves. You just saw some great action here. Breaker really stole the show. I think he won everybody over. Sheamus was still like really over. Ludwig just wrestled such a smart match where he picked his spots. I just think this triple threat match has great replay value, great action. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the most impressive thing Breaker was involved with this year. The Sammy stuff was a little bit more, squash oriented. But this triple threat match with Breaker going over was just must-see stuff. He really reminded me of a combination of Steiner and Goldberg in that match. At number 8, we have Gunther taking on Randy Orton. This is from King of the Ring. So you guys know I love King of the Ring. I'm still a little bit underwhelmed with the presentation of it. The finals were good. There were some good matches on TV leading up to this thing. The highlights being Randy and AJ, Gunther and Sheamus had a good match. I mean, the list goes on and on. There's a lot of, good King of the Ring matches on television. But what AEW is doing with World's End, they're going to actually put the semifinals on pay-per-view, and then you're going to get the finals in the main event. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. That's kind of the format I want to see for King of the Ring. I'd love to have the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the finals on the pay-per-view, but in this climate with the women, it's too difficult to pull off. The funny thing is, I think a lot of people dismissed King and Queen of the Ring like it was a Saudi Arabia pay-per-view or a Disney movie and just didn't give it the credit that it deserved. The show itself was good. I just don't think it was what people were envisioning. Silver lining is you got an incredible final with Gunther and Orton. I think this is the better match. I think Gunther in the role of controlling the match and Orton just really overselling, it actually worked out well. They tried to argue that it wasn't a decisive finish with Orton blowing out his back and his knee, and then Gunther kind of giving him a crucifix on the RKO finish. But I still think he had great stuff here. Gunther just rolling away from the RKO at every stretch was pretty damn cool. Randy's selling, I thought, was incredible here too. So definitely check out King of the Ring. I think the Bash at Berlin, if you're a crowd reaction guy, that's probably the one to check out. But I think this probably had the better dynamic with Gunther being the heel, the ring general in control. I just think it worked better this way. At number 7, we got Gunther taking on Sami Zayn from WrestleMania. It's a little disappointing. My expectations were for this that it was going to steal the show, not just from WrestleMania, but the whole weekend. Ring of Honor, whatever, GCW, indie stuff was going to go on that weekend. I said by far this is the match to check out. It didn't really hit that level for me. It was still great stuff. I still think Gunther and Sammy have a better match in them. They had a match on Raw, which I really can't tell you if it's as good as this or even better. I really can't. But hey, I still think he had great moments here. It ended up being more about the story of Sammy, finally getting it done, as opposed to them just having a great match or a war. You had Rocky IV elements out there. You had Sammy's wife almost playing, the Adrian role in an opposite version of Adrian. Adrian's usually more shy and subdued, but Sammy's wife was more of a trash talker here. So it's funny how they flipped the Adrian role to get this done. So I still think it's an awesome match. You had some awesome moments here. The entrances, everything clicked in terms of the presentation. It's still an awesome match. It's still the best thing, I think, on WrestleMania Night 1. So check that out. That's at number 7 if you haven't seen it yet. At number 6, we got Drew McIntyre taking on CM Punk. This is from SummerSlam with Seth Rollins as the guest referee. I love this match. I think the crowd was hot to finally see Punk wrestle. I think the build was incredible, so you had an incredible crowd. Rollins is the special guest referee. I think did an incredible job. Very much like the HBK performance from '97. You wanted to see like a lot of tension and a lot of uncertainty. Ultimately, Punk's ego doesn't let him win this match, and he's more concerned about Rollins and the bracelet. Rollins was just, when you watch this match back, Rollins was trying to protect both guys by neutralizing the bracelet and keeping it on him, but Punk kind of interpreted it as disrespectful. So, but you got a lot of good tension here. Look, I'm not going to argue with you. If you think Punk looked a little bit rusty here and you didn't think the pacing and the chemistry was great, that's fine. I just think what really sold me on the match was the tension with Rollins, the crowd, the atmosphere. And I think a lot of the injury stuff with Drew actually injuring Punk and actually going back to the double arm DDT, God damn, what's the name of the move? Drew's finisher, let's just call it that. Punk staying away from that and trying to avoid the injury really gave it a nice mix of drama. So I thought the match was a lot of fun. It definitely was like the show stealer for SummerSlam for me. At number 5, we have Gunther taking on Damian Priest. This is actually from Survivor Series. So yeah, I think I like this match more than some people. I've even talked to guys in person about the match, and I think a lot of people just think it was okay. I think they're kind of using the crowd reaction against it, and this. And I want to do a video one day just going over like great matches with bad crowd reactions. And I don't think the crowd was bad here, but I think, Priest is still like a work in progress. And I think what this match did was it really elevated Priest as like a monster babyface. The way he worked the crowd, the way, Balor really screwed him out of his opportunity here. I just think he did a lot of good stuff here. The comeback while he's almost going to pass out some of his comebacks were incredible here. And Gunther was just a master, relentless going after the shoulder, locking into Kamara. I just think he had some of the best submission work and the best, some of the best strategic work of the year, from Gunther's side here. And they swerved the fans too. The way Priest took that bump at the end of this thing, a lot of people thought it was a botch. It clearly wasn't a botch if Balor was going to do his big, coup de grace on it. So I actually like Balor's interference here. I think there's a lot more you can do with Balor and Priest. So good win for Gunther. I think it was an awesome match between these guys. At number 4, we got Cody taking on AJ Styles. This is from Clash at the Castle. This is the I Quit match to open up the show. This is incredible. I fucking love this match, man. AJ was just brutal with that kendo stick. And, the handcuff stuff was pretty interesting. You almost forget how Cody gets free. But I'll tell you, most underrated spot of the year, Cody's that chest pass of the steel chair to AJ when he's doing the Phenomenal Forum, and then he goes through the table. That really turned the tide for him. I think they could have done a little bit more, from a submission standpoint. But then again, maybe you called this a submission match if they went in that direction. The feud was too personal at this time because AJ was going to retire. He swerved Cody, and then he beat the crap out of him. It was one of the best swerves of the year from AJ. And so this ended up being more about just more about blood. And obviously, Cody actually wins by cuffing AJ to the ropes and going after him with the steel steps. It was really, really a cool finish. I thought it worked. I thought this was an incredible match. I could have done without the AJ and Cody's mom stuff, but it was cool though. It was a cool celebration for Cody and his mom to end this thing. Number 3, we got Punk taking out McIntyre. Bad blood, Hell in a Cell. God damn, man. I'll tell you. From an execution standpoint, everything here just flowed really well. You could just tell these two guys prepared, good communication. The crowd is incredible here. I can't tell you how many Hell in a Cell matches we've seen that just have lackluster crowds where the crowd is just burned and, they can't get the crowd into it. The crowd was just in it every step of the way. The symbolism here with the bracelet, I actually thought it worked. I thought it was awesome. Just the way Drew, poured it out like it was thumbtacks. It was just a slap in the face. I think Punk, the way he utilized the steel chain was great. The toolbox stuff, everything here was just really well executed. Even some of the table bumps here, you just didn't see coming. So I just think you got your money's worth. I think, it's an FU to some of the Punk haters about whether he still has it or not. I mean, from a wrestling standpoint, this is what I kind of expected from Punk. I knew he would look kind of shaky in some spots, but matches where, the environment was, conducive to him in terms of, going on first and the freedom to use whatever weapons you want. I kind of knew he would thrive in a situation like this, and he definitely did. So I got Punk and McIntyre at number 3. These top 3, I think you could switch all of them. I had a tough time ranking the top 3. I think you could easily go with Punk and McIntyre as the match of the year. At number 2, we're going to go with Cody and Roman. This is actually from WrestleMania. the rematch from WrestleMania 39. Okay, so all right, so my argument in terms of let me start with why I would argue against this match. I just, from a wrestling standpoint and from a predictability standpoint, I think Cody and Roman from WrestleMania 39, it's definitely the WrestleMania match to check out from a wrestling standpoint and predictability standpoint. All right, so I just don't know if this is the type of match you could watch over and over again, because there's so much here. There's so much interference. There's so much, drama. The celebration. It's just a lot, to digest. You can't say that this is going to have the replay value that Angle and Michaels has had, for instance. So, I mean, if you want to argue that it's the greatest WrestleMania event because of everything that came along with it, as Michael Cole pointed out, I have no problem with that. But in terms of what I could say positive about it, it holds up, man. It is an incredible thing to watch. It's the most must-see match of the year. For Cody to finally get his moment, this ended up being one of the more important title changes ever, with Roman going down. It just felt like such a big deal. The tears were in everybody's eyes. I actually started tearing up the second time watching this thing, because it just felt so meaningful. And then it was surprise after surprise, and the symbolism, especially the Shield stuff with Rollins, I think is really the most underrated part of the match. And they kind of used that in the storyline as well, going into War Games with, Rollins actually was created by Rollins. Roman's dominance, or Roman the monster, is created by, what happened with, Rollins turning on the Shield, and just how Roman played off of that spot. I think that might go down as the most underrated part of the match. But, Taker's surprise was incredible. Cena's stuff, Rock stuff. You just got so many, it's just great moment after one great moment after another. And, give Triple H credit, give the booking credit. They definitely did their job. This was just a nice, resurgence for the company after what started out as just such a, down year, at the Rumble. It was just a nice little way to make up for it. A nice little story of redemption for Cody as well. I mean, it's an incredible main event. But my argument against it, though, is I just don't know if you can go back to this, every single year and have it mean as much. I think this match is really the type of match where you can only watch it once in a while, to really appreciate, the effect of it. But, someone actually said, man, this was like watching a dream unfold. And it definitely was, man. It's a WrestleMania main event that felt like a dream. It felt too good to be true. But we got that at number 2. At number 1, I'm going to go with Cody and AJ Styles from Backlash. So some of you guys might know, in my favorites right now, I got the AJ, that whole workout routine he did in the ice tub and at his house with the jump rope and the weight training. I think it was one of the best promos, one of the best videos uploaded the whole year about AJ's new, physique, his new, training styles. I thought that was incredible. And we get this Cody and AJ match at Backlash, which, kind of felt like babyface versus babyface. I mean, it really did. I even think there might have been a code of honor to end this thing. But man, the crowd was incredible here. Definitely one of the best atmospheres maybe ever. I think what you got from AJ at this stage of his career was just, something to see. This is just an example of, them, having, a match that, feels like they gave you above and beyond everything you could have asked for without, any of the finishers or, anything feeling devalued here. I don't think AJ hit one Styles Clash. I don't think Cody hit, one Cody cutter that AJ kicked out of. They did creative stuff. Some of the counters here, some of the, Cody cutters, Some of the high spots here, some of the chain wrestling here was just great. So I got Cody and AJ Styles, the match of the year at Backlash. I think what's really going to put this over the top is just the atmosphere. You know, I'm not going to say that the crowd in France was the best crowd ever, but it's going to go down as maybe the most unique, you know, crowd reaction ever. So, you know, shout out to AJ Styles. He turned 47 this year. So, you know, for him to have the match of the year at 46, 47 years old, it's incredible. So in some ways, I'm just happy we could pay respect to AJ. And this is going to end up being, you know, I don't think it's going to be his last year ever, but, you know, one of his last great years. He has the match of the year at this stage. It's an incredible match. But last thing I wanted to say about this Backlash match, and Cody even alluded to it, that it's must win. The Backlash spot is the biggest match, you know, of the year in some ways, because, you know, this is the pay-per-view where you do not want to lose the title. I mean, if you lose it at Backlash, you know, if there's a huge celebration for you at WrestleMania, and then you lose it at Backlash, like it feels like the biggest stain you can have if you want to be known as a great champion. And even if you did end up being known as a great champion, look at the depths that you actually have to go to kind of rekindle it or get it back. And, you know, Triple H in 2002 will be an example of that. I just think, you know, him losing to Hogan in that spot, I think that kind of affected Triple H. I'm not going to say negatively, but I think he was determined to kind of rectify it to the point where he didn't give a fuck if he was going to be negatively, you know, scrutinized by everybody. So I'll just end it right there. So I got Cody and AJ from Backlash at number 1. Okay, next part of the video, this is going to be the premium live events, the pay-per-views from worst to best. I think my biggest complaint about the pay-per-view quality this year, you know, a lot of lag. I think, you know, the ring announcing, you know, doing the ring announcing after the music is done for the entrances, I just think it takes a little bit too long for, you know, the matches to start. I think maybe too many women tag matches this year. I think maybe too much women on pay-per-view in general this year. I just like to see some of the up-and-coming guys on more of the shows, like, you know, Akira Tozawa, you know, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa. Who's the other one? Obviously Chad Gable. You throw him out there. Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate, you know, guys like that. So you just want to have, you know, younger guys steal the show. But I get the point, you know, Motor City Machine Guns, I'll throw those names out as well. There's just a lot of guys that you only get to see on SmackDown or on Raw. So, you know, they've just been very selective about some of the premium live events, which might have been done on purpose because of the situation with, you know, cost cutting, flying guys overseas. I think that probably has something to do with it. So, hey, I mean, I just think, you know, as a whole, I thought 2023, it was probably a better year, I think, for WWE in terms of the consistency for the premium live events. But I think what this year has on last year is you just had some incredible gates in terms of the revenue, and obviously the crowd reactions in Berlin and Scotland and in France, you know, were just incredible. I mean, they were so good that they really kind of make, you know, some of the crowds in North America seem a little bit generic, you know, compared to them. So we're going to start off here, the worst pay-per-view of the year. I'm going to go with the Rumble. You know, it could be just me. I just, for whatever reason, when I watched this live, I just, I don't know. I just couldn't sit through the whole show, which sounds crazy. I just couldn't do it. I just think there was some pacing issues with it. I think down the road, I think the best thing to do, you know, I don't think SummerSlam needs to be a 2-night event. You know, I actually like the pacing of SummerSlam this year. It was much better than I think, you know, we could have envisioned. But with Royal Rumble, I think this is the event that needs to be 2 nights. You can have the Women's Rumble one night. You can have the 2 championship matches on separate nights. So I just think it makes all the sense in the world. I don't enjoy sitting through, you know, the Women's Royal Rumble and then the Men's Rumble. And give the women credit this year. I think there was a lot of interesting things from Jordan Grace to, Bailey winning this thing, from Jade's appearance. There was a lot of interesting things. But at the same time, I just think a lot of the girls, throughout this thing were just not ready for prime time, to be exact. And, the men's rumble as well. I just think this was just a bad environment. It just didn't have the same appeal that some of the other ones have. So I actually like the idea of having the men go first. I just think that's the best way, maybe the only way, to get around this problem. I wasn't a big fan of the four-way as well. I think having the four-way as the the follow-up to women's rumble, it feels too repetitive. I think to have all those, you have four guys in the ring at the same time. I think it would have felt fresh. I think you always want that Rumble title match to be one-on-one. A lot of times in the past, you want to go back to something that had already been done, at the Rumble, one-on-one. I like that format a little bit better. I don't know. I just wasn't crazy. The Punk getting injured too, it just kind of made things feel a little bit sour. Plus, you're coming off of a very controversial, news week in the WWE. I just think it was a bad night. I just, it's probably not the worst Rumbles ever, but I got to put this last. I mean, this is the show I would, go back to the least, I think, out of all of these. All right, next up, I'm going to go with Crown Jewel in the second to last spot. So I love the main event between Cody and Gunther. I think it was good, but I think, with Crown Jewel, there is just a lot of stuff on the female side that I definitely think under-delivered. Rollins and Bronson Reed, I just don't think, that was a vintage performance from Rollins. I just think it was very forgettable. The Kevin stuff with Randy, it's you pretty much got screwed if you were expecting, something there. But hey, I think it was a nice little way to kind of build, to a bigger match. So I think Crown Jewel was okay. I don't think it was. I think it gave you a good main event. There were some parts during the show that I definitely think, were very forgettable. But I got Crown Jewel in the second to last spot. Next up, we're going to go with the Elimination Chamber from Australia. It's a pretty average show. You got two Elimination Chambers. You got Rhea in the main event going up against Nia Jax, which was great. I think it was great for her, to be in her hometown. But hey, I think the chamber matches were very, I think they were pretty generic. I don't think they over delivered. I don't think they under delivered. And it just seemed to me like this featured. I think what really hurt this pay-per-view more than anything is the lack of wrestling. Like there's almost like an hour of this show where there's absolutely no wrestling. I think there's actually a Seth and Cody segment with Grayson Waller that, ate up a lot of the show. All right, Bad Blood. I'm going to go with Bad Blood next. So, give Bad Blood credit. I think they definitely over promoted it. But at the same time, I think Hell in a Cell, Bad Blood, there's a lot of homage to the history in Atlanta with the Omni that I like about it. The 27 years since the original Bad Blood, Hell in a Cell. The fact that they gave Drew and Punk the green light to deliver, to maximize the crowd. I like that about it, but I just think the rest of the card definitely, suffered for the most part. Once again, the women just underperformed, under-delivered. The main event, the selling point for the main event is, Cody teaming up with Roman. I thought at the time they spent too much time trying to, tie it in with, the history in Georgia. It was really interesting how they were able to work, that, especially the stuff on the football field. I really enjoyed that. But at the same time, if you want to look at this from a positive standpoint, how they were able to use, Cody teaming up with Roman to kind of pivot to Kevin Owens turning heel on Randy and Cody, it really got the job done. So if you look at it from that standpoint, it was pretty damn cool. The Rock returns as well. So he kind of I don't know what you could read into the Rock, returning. He gives a cutthroat symbol, but, in the back of your mind, is he upset with Cody? Obviously you still want to see him go at it with Cody, but is he upset with Roman for teaming with Cody. So it's just, I think the biggest thing coming out of it is, Roman and Cody teaming up together just has a lot of people pissed and baffled. So it really is not the worst event in the world. I just think they overdid it with the celebrities and trying to appeal to the mainstream hip hop world, which I definitely think is a mistake. I think a lot of people watch wrestling, to get away from, some of that stuff. To be honest with you, I don't think people watch wrestling and just want to be, put in a hip hop box or a rock and roll box. I think you want to watch wrestling because, you're just strictly into the characters. I don't think you're trying to, I don't think the WWE needs to go out of their way to, try to market themselves to, the hip hop culture. I really don't. All right, next up we have King and Queen of the Ring in the next spot. So hey, yeah, I think what hurts the show is it's in Saudi Arabia. You're doing a finals for the women and the men. Side effect is it doesn't feel like a tournament. You want to see the tournament on the show. But hey, they gave us a great finals. But still, I think this left a lot of people definitely unsatisfied. I mean, the show itself was good, but the negative part of it is I think a lot of people didn't give it the time of the day because it's in Saudi Arabia, number one. And I think the King and Queen of the Ring thing, I think it feels a little bit too Disney. It feels a little bit too sappy, I think, for some people. I think there are a lot of people, especially the smart marks, that felt like they were above this show. And that's why I think some people might have passed on it. So, hey, I think that you still need to rework this presentation of King of the Ring. It's got a great legacy. If I were to, ask if they could just cut one of these woman participation matches, I think this will be the one. Now the Royal Rumble will be another one, but hey, I think King and Queen of the Ring. I think you just kind of just let it be King of the Ring, and maybe you could do Queen of the Ring as a a special on SmackDown or something like that. Okay, next up we got Money in the Bank. This is from Toronto. I think Money in the Bank was a solid show. I think this is the most consistent show of the year. So if you want to make the argument against it, nothing really over-delivered. You don't want to do a tag match in the main event. Both Money in the Banks are good. This is really the only time I think the women, might have, been on par with the men. The argument against Seth and Seth Rollins and Damian Priest, maybe Seth isn't 100% yet. Some of the booking here with Punk coming out, maybe it took away from the match, but it was exciting though. I think the argument for that match is it was definitely exciting to see Drew try to cash it in, Punk keep him from cashing in. It really built, Punk and Drew up quite nicely. It definitely had the better Sami Zayn match against Braun Breaker. I think their match was really, really good. So very consistent show. Like I think everything is really, pretty much on the same level here. And, it was a great night for Solo. I wasn't crazy about the main event, but hey, Solo got a big win. I think Jacob Fatu's performance should definitely be commended. So I got Money in the Bank in that spot. Next, I'm going to go with the Bash in Berlin. I think it was a really fun show. I think you had a lot of good depth here, a lot of nice one-on-one matches. From Kevin and Cody to open up this thing with the hot crowd. Punk and Drew in the strap match. It was very intense. It was very brutal, and the crowd reaction for the main event. Definitely did get the job done. I think some of the female stuff once again, was a little bit forgettable. I think Bianca and Jade won the tag titles back. That wasn't a bad match. The Judgment Day stuff was actually good. I think you had a fun crowd. To see Rhea and Damian Priest presented as baby faces, they were over huge. So this is definitely one of the best shows of the year, from a crowd reaction standpoint. And Gunther retains in his home territory over Randy Orton and what was still an awesome main event. All right, next up we have Clash at the Castle in the very next spot. Yeah, so I think Clash of the Castle really, besides the triple threat, women's tag, I think everything is worth checking out. I think AJ and Cody was phenomenal. I think Sammy and Chad Gable, they definitely had all the elements there to have a classic Intercontinental Championship match. Bayley and Piper Niven is definitely one of the better, female matches of the year. And then the main event, it didn't go exactly great. There were some botches, but there were some incredible moments. It nowhere near as good as Drew versus Roman at the original Clash of the Castle, but Punk coming out at the end was definitely a surprise. It was definitely an eventful show. I think Clash of the Castle was, definitely a success. And the Scottish fans were, I would definitely say they were in the top three of, maybe the top three best crowds of the year. Besides France, besides Berlin, they might even be at number 2 or number 3. And next up we have SummerSlam. SummerSlam was good, man. I was very negative on SummerSlam, before it started. I didn't think I could look like a good card. I think it had a lackluster main event. I think Punk and Drew with Seth as the referee was really the only thing we're excited about. But everything was booked well. I mean, everything really was better than expected. The Liv Morgan match teaming up with Dominic was a nice little swerve. I thought that opened the show with a bang. The Braun Breaker squash was surprising. It just had a nice little pace to it, man. Even the Bayley, even Bayley and Nia Jax, it did bring the show down, but, Bayley really had some incredible moments there, which I think her performance in that match, solidified her, as the woman of the year for the WWE. It's that simple. I mean, the main event was, very much a replica of WrestleMania with a lot of the interference and everything, and you're setting up for the big return with Roman. I just don't think. I think if SummerSlam had a better main event, we're talking about easily, possibly the second pay-per-view of the year. All right, next up I'm going to go with Survivor Series War Games. I think the best argument for this show is I think compared to last year's show, some of the non-war game stuff I thought was pretty good. I thought Nakamura, wrestled a really good match against LA Knight. I think Nakamura just had some awesome moves and moments. The highlight being the inverted DDT on the steel structure that holds the rings together. I thought that was cool. The triple threat with Braun Breaker stealing the show, was the highlight. I think Gunther's match against Damian Priest, in terms of the work rate, I don't know if it gets any better than this in terms of strategy and submission work and selling from any other match this year. And then say what you want about the main event. I think the main event had a lot of cool stuff with it in terms of, the solos directing, the teamwork from the Bloodline, Paul trying to get Punk and Roman to, get on the same page, and eventually they do. I mean, some of the spots here were incredible. Some of the tension. I mean, it's definitely like I think what really is you're going to remember this for is just some of the interactions with Punk and Roman inside of the cage, and even Solo too. Just, making sure Fatu is the next one to get in there because we want to, get the upper hand. Just little stuff like that, I think, put the match over the top and, the event over the top. I think War Games was definitely, a success once again. But I would be very, I think what I'd like Triple H to know or my feeling on it is I just don't think you need to do War Games every year. It's been 3 years now. So let's not forget about traditional Survivor Series elimination matches. The idea too of War Games possibly being a separate pay-per-view. In WCW is known as Wrestle War or Fall Brawl, and sometimes it was Great American Bash. But you could always do War Games separately from Survivor Series. So I think that could definitely be a possibility as well. Okay, next up I got Backlash. This is from France, so I'm going to have this in the second spot. So originally I wasn't crazy about this show, and I'm still not I'm not going to say it's the best crowd ever. I mean, it definitely had, one of the most unique crowd atmospheres. I think my biggest issue with the crowd was, the singing kind of lingered throughout a lot of the night, and it just felt like noise instead of, fans actually being into matches, but still, it's a very unique crowd. I thought they were incredible throughout, certain matches, especially the opener and then the main event as well. It featured one of the best, matches of the year, maybe the match of the year in the main event. So that's what really puts the show over the top for me. But it just exceeded my expectations in terms of, the overall excitement, for that show in France. They'd never really been to France before, so I had no idea, what that crowd was going to be like. But it was interesting, man. My biggest regret was my dad, took French in school and everything, and he knows how to say the "Our Father" in French. I wish I had got him to say it in French for the review, just as an added bonus. But it was a lot of fun, man. I thought Cody and AJ, it had to be the match of the year for me. So I'm going to go with Backlash in the second spot, and then the premium live event of the year. I'm just going to put WrestleMania as the top spot here. So I think WrestleMania 39 probably had, from a star rating standpoint and from a match quality standpoint, that's probably the better WrestleMania. But I think what this had over WrestleMania 39 was just the excitement level. I think, for everybody that was upset about Roman going over WrestleMania 39, like, this was the reward for it. All the uncertainty and the build up here, and the equation with The Rock, possibly, taking that spot away from Cody. It just ended up being, one of the more, monumental and one of the more memorable, builds to a WrestleMania ever. You even have people that don't normally cover, WWE or WrestleMania, do videos on this, like Bill Simmons, for example. So, yeah, I just think that whole main event scene with Cody coming back into the equation, and then Rollins tagging up with Cody, it was pretty damn cool, man. And so, with that, but hey, man, I actually liked it, when Roman retained at WrestleMania 39. I just kind of knew, like, man, you could just, like, down the road, like, you could just get a lot out of this. So, and then not to mention, man, I think the WrestleMania as a whole as well, the female really, did their jobs, for this show. I think both female title matches were really, really good. The booking with CM Punk, the way they booked Punk, to attack McIntyre, was just really, really, dope stuff. I think, Punk even said that they made chicken salad out of chicken shit with the injury, and that's exactly what they did. I just think that was one of the coolest moments ever. I couldn't even predict it, man. Like, I had no idea. Punk being on commentary should have gave that away, but still, like, you really didn't know how that was going to play out until it was executed, man. And so I got to give that credit as well. And, even some of the more under the radar stuff, the Logan Paul triple threat, was cool. I think AJ and LA Knight, that probably ended up being maybe AJ's most, impressive WrestleMania performances. A lot of times they AJ at WrestleMania kind of under-delivered. I don't think you can really say that about AJ in that spot with LA Knight. The Sammy and Gunther, still ended up being the match of the night from night one, like I think most people expected. So yeah, I think WrestleMania was definitely a success. I think what held it back is just maybe too many tags. You gave us just a lot of different tag matches that I just think we're gonna feel like filler or just gonna feel there. But at the same time, you wanted to see people like Jade, you wanted to see people like Mysterio, you wanted to see Lashley involved in something. So I definitely understand it, but I think WrestleMania still needs to. I think this year a little bit more well-rounded in terms of just focusing on marquee matches that can deliver. I don't think you need to overload it with that many tag matches. I think that's the one thing I would try to correct going into WrestleMania this year. Just don't have as many multi-man tag matches. But hey, man. Just end it right there. That's the premium live events from worst to best. So at the worst spot, I had the Rumble. At the best spot, I had WrestleMania. Okay, so the final part of the video here, this is going to be the MVP race for the WWE of 2024. So, originally, man, I was just going to come on here and just say, I don't really think it's a debate. I think Cody pretty much wrapped up the MVP in at WrestleMania. But then the more I started to think about it, I'm like, all right, maybe we'll just do a top five. Because there is a couple of guys that could definitely throw their name, in the mix here. But, the more and more I started to evaluate it, I mean, it's a pretty good list. I don't think it's as predictable as some of the other years. I actually liked last year's, format. I put a collage of everybody that was in contention. I tried to make a case for and against each one of them. I ended up going with Gunther, but I think last year's was definitely, one of the better MVP races in quite some time. So, all right, so let's get right to it. I got some honorable mentions before we get into the top 10. I'm going to go with LA Knight as an honorable mention. Braun Breaker. Braun made a hell of an impact this year, even though, he wasn't consistently on a lot of the events. I still think, Braun made, a hell of an impact. And I think that's the biggest thing. This is the biggest criteria for this list. How much buzz can you generate, going into some of these premium live events and, buzz coming out of them. I think that's the biggest criteria I have here. Not really, television matches, Raw and SmackDown matches are going to be part of this list. Chad Gable as well. By the way, I know I just said that about the criteria, but Chad and Cody, just had a really hell of a match on SmackDown. That's worth checking out. But Chad was unbelievable this year. I just think with Chad Gable, I like his wrestling skills. The promos and his his leadership ability as a heel has definitely gotten better. I think as the year went on. I just think a lot of his matches were kind of plagued by some of the Otis stuff. So, that's why I wouldn't put him in the top 10. But he definitely deserves a mention. The guy's a hell of a talent. Tiffany Stratton made a hell of an impact this year. She's been I think the most interesting part, of the women's division. Just her, her athletic background, her look, her skills. I just think she's been the most interesting thing, especially from a visual standpoint, compared to a lot of the crap what we had to sit through this year with the women. I'm not trying to bash the women. I just don't think it was a great year in terms of, the women on the premium live events, especially, some of the girls that won the championships like Liv Morgan and Nia Jax. I just think they've kind of brought the division down, somewhat. But Tiffany Stratton has been the, diamond in the rough, the Money in the Bank holders. So she's definitely going to have a big year, especially at WrestleMania. She's going to be in that spot at WrestleMania. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. All right, so we got Seth Rollins as an honorable mention. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to put Seth in here. I think he might have came back too soon. At Money in the Bank, he looked a little bit rusty there. But, you got to credit Seth. He main events WrestleMania. For the second time, but it's really like the first time he main evented WrestleMania, going into it with the build and everything. So you got to give him credit there. I think he really stepped up to the plate and went toe to toe with The Rock in terms of, promos. I think that's the most memorable thing, he probably did from this year, but he was hurt for most of the year. He missed the Rumble, he missed Elimination Chamber. I think really the only time he was really allowed to wrestle was, pretty much WrestleMania. That's pretty much it. And then, the Money in the Bank thing was very temporary. And, he came back a little bit and did some stuff with Bronson Reed that I just think, the build was good. The takedowns were good, but, the match is just kind of forgettable. So, yeah, Seth definitely had a down year. But, a lot of it has to do with the injuries. I think Seth and Punk are going to do some incredible stuff. Even right now, like Seth is really kind of, getting back into a great rhythm, especially on the mic. So I'm looking forward to, what Seth is going to do in this storyline with Sami Zayn and CM Punk. All right, I got Sami Zayn as an honorable mention. So, good year for Sami. You could definitely argue that he should be in this top 10 right here. But yeah, I mean, he won the IC title from Gunther at WrestleMania. That's going to be the highlight of his career. But Intercontinental Champion, I love, him resurrecting, with the bloodline. I think that was definitely, the way to go. I mean, it was pretty awesome to see Sammy, reunite with the bloodline as baby faces. It's just really, really cool. Pro wrestling, how things just kind of sort of align to put the heels as baby faces a couple years later. I just like the way it was done. But yeah, Sammy definitely had a good year. I think what kind of cost him, being a little bit higher is, maybe the Braun Breaker stuff. When he's in the ring with Breaker, I just think some of those matches could have. I think they could have been better. I think the booking definitely, was designed to put Breaker over. But hey, man, let's get right into the top 10. Let me just make sure we're at 10. We got 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, yeah, all right, we're at the top 10. Number 10, I'm going to go with CM Punk. And same thing with Seth. I know people are going to use the argument against Punk here, but I think Punk really, generated a lot of buzz. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed his year in WWE, even though it wasn't as, obviously he didn't wrestle as much as we would have liked. I mean, really, the only thing we really got is a feud with Drew McIntyre, and ended up being the feud of the year. So I'll definitely say that. The stuff at the Rumble is just depressing. With Drew actually injuring him from the the Future Shock DDT. I mean, that, you could definitely see him in a lot of pain, when Drew executed that. But I love Punk's promo the next night. I think that one of the best promos he ever cut about, just paying tribute to people that just keep going. I think he really kind of empathized with a lot of people that wake up every day and do the same thing over and over again, and he really kind of took a step back and just appreciated just the way he shouted out just normal people that go to work every day. I think it was an awesome promo, him tearing up and everything, and it just kind of realizing maybe this WrestleMania fantasy that I have is just not going to happen. It's an incredible promo. I don't know if people really are going to mention this as one of Punk's best promos, but it meant a lot to me. I thought it was great. How they booked WrestleMania with the commentary thing, I thought was, genius looking back on it. But yeah, man, the feud with McIntyre was on point. All the tension that he did with Roman leading into Survivor Series. I mean, really, it really stole the show in terms of buzz, going into the event and definitely coming out of the event. I think all the interactions with Roman were money, and you could definitely, it kind of plants the seeds to go back for it. And, the favor thing as well. I think Punk is definitely going to cash in on that favor if Roman ever becomes champion again, which could be a long time from now, but I could definitely see it happening with Heyman, allowing Punk to have a title shot at Roman, or, whatever the case may be. But I'm interested to see how that will play out. But yeah, man, I mean, Punk coming back to the WWE, I definitely enjoyed it. I know this is a polarizing pick, and I know there's a lot of people out there that have turned on Punk because he's a hypocrite, and even Seth Rollins has been calling him a fraud. That seems to be a word that people keep throwing around. But you know what, man? When you look at the history of sports and the history of this business, I mean, you don't have to like everybody to enjoy their work. I mean, think about it. Most people would argue that Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, two of my favorite athletes, favorite players ever, you could argue that they were assholes. I mean, you can make the argument that in order to win, you need to be an asshole. And, but hey, man, the whole thing with Punk being a hypocrite, everything that happened in AEW. So sometimes I just think experience just, changes everything for people. I think this is what he needed. Vince is definitely the common denominator here, but I think he needed to experience, the other side of the puzzle, a company that wanted to be mainstream, but at the same time, it's still independent wrestling based. And I think he realized, the grass wasn't really greener. At the same time, I think he really kind of, felt like he did not want to, place his fate in the hands of somebody else. I think everything just aligned with the Vince is the common denominator. Him leaving, him being out of the equation, made all the sense in the world, to come back, because what really triggered, the falling out with Cabana, has to do with Vince. And what really triggered the falling out with AEW has to do with Cabana. So it all goes back to Vince. And now Vince is out of the equation. You heard it time and time again about how Triple H fought for Punk, to not job to Ryback and stay champion. And really, Triple H really, developed somewhat of a mutual respect for Punk. I'm glad he's back. I wish the AEW stuff could have worked out. Punk, just not being consistent. And, if you look back at the history of interviews, is he a hypocrite? Is he, somebody that is not trustworthy? Is he selfish? You could definitely argue that. But my answer to that is, like, if you don't like CM Punk, then just, don't talk about him. I think if you really hate somebody that much, I'm not going to go back and study, every single interview. Like if I hate a coach, or I hate a girl, or I was in a relationship with a girl, maybe you hate the girl now, or you hate the coach. Like, I just don't want to even fucking bother with them. So I think if that's the way you feel about Punk, just ignore them. I don't think you need to, study and overanalyze every single fucking interview that the guy's done. But to me, man, like I've always been a huge Punk supporter. It broke my heart when he walked out of the company. A lot of that just had to do with the timing. But, if to make the argument for Punk here, I think he definitely makes things interesting. You definitely want him around. Is he selfish? Is he greedy? I think a lot of stuff has happened over the years that has kind of forced him to have this huge chip on his shoulder. And I think it goes back to his upbringing, with everything that transpired about, becoming a monster to fight the monsters of the world. I think everything goes back to the childhood days. Wanted to make that point. And plus, like, if, we're going to compare him to Seth. Seth has been calling him a fraud, and, Seth has, really been critical about how he changes the narrative, and, going back to the early days of the Shield. Punk shielded him from being fired by the WWE, which was a great line from Punk. But, realistically, I'm a Ring of Honor guy. First and foremost, Ring of Honor will always be, my favorite promotion. Along with the WWE, they're right there. But when you go back to when both guys were in Ring of Honor, I think you can make the argument that Punk really went out of his way to make Ring of Honor a better place. Just the way he ended things. Even when he knew he was going to go to the WWE that whole summer. He did his job. He put over guys. He worked with younger guys. Just everything that he did there. It just felt like he didn't even want to leave. But with Seth, the argument against Seth is, I think he did the opposite. When he won the ROH title, he used it as leverage to try to get out. And by the time he dropped the belt, I think he left people a little bit baffled, and I don't blame him for doing it. And I'm glad that he did it. I think if Seth or Tyler was in that situation, you need to do whatever you can to, make a living or make something out of it. So I think he did what he had to do. So I don't blame him for doing it. But like, if we're going to be fair, I think Seth really tried to use Ring of Honor. And he didn't really leave it in a better place. Like, if you look at Davey Richards' demeanor right before Seth Rollins left Ring of Honor, he looked disgusted. Like, if Seth knew he was going to leave, he should have dropped the belt to Davey, going back a couple months earlier, before he, decided to leave. But at the time, he probably didn't know. There was a little bit of uncertainty. So, and he's still trying to prove himself as champion. David even said, now you're a champion after he beat him. So that whole exodus from Ring of Honor, if it's gonna come down to character and selfishness, who was more selfish in that situation? I would have to say Seth. Punk left Ring of Honor a much better place than Seth Rollins did. So just wanted to make that point. But we're gonna move on from there. I got CM Punk at number 10. At number 9, I'm gonna go with Roman. Obviously, Roman is a box office god, a draw. And you know, it really wouldn't shock me if Roman ends up winning the Rumble and going for the title at WrestleMania. They might be doing Cody and Roman every single year. You know, it's definitely a possibility. I really don't want to see that, but, you know, because Roman is such a stud right now, I don't think you can rule out anything. But, you know, just the way he was brought back, you know, they finally got everybody on his side. The OTC champs, the original tribal chief. I think Roman has had, you know, an incredible year. And yeah, I didn't mention him, but honorable mention goes to Solo. Reason I didn't have Solo on this list is, you know, I think the SummerSlam main event cost him. I think that match really brought that show down. I think, you know, SummerSlam could have easily been, you know, a top 2, top 3 premium live event of the year. I just think Solo, from a wrestling standpoint, kind of underperformed, you know, in big spots. But, you know, even though Roman didn't do much this year, I still think you have to put him on the list because of the impact that he made, at, you know, leading up to WrestleMania, at WrestleMania, and, you know, the return, and obviously going into Survivor Series as well. I got Kevin Owens in the 8th spot. We got Kevin at number 8. The Righteous Man. Ain't nothing wrong with the Righteous Man. I think Kevin had a good year, man. I think he had a really good year. I like what he's doing right now with Cody. I like some of the promos that he's cutting. He's able to back it up with history about, you know, Cody deciding to team with Roman, and then he kind of brings up all this stuff that Roman did, and Cody was in the building, and then he didn't help me. So I think there's a lot to like about Kevin. You know, even when Randy turned on him, he tried to back it up and just say, you know, I would have never done that to you. It almost feels like Kevin has really learned from, you know, a lot of the asshole and dirty things he's done in the past, and he's trying to use it as, you know, a method of kind of learning from that. And, you know, anytime someone else makes a mistake, he's trying to, you know, overanalyze or pinpoint, you know, their mistakes. So, yeah, I think Kevin's been great. He still has that eye of the tiger. I still enjoy it, man. After all these years, you almost forget that he's been in the WWE this long. But hey, man, this build to the Saturday night's main event coming up this weekend, I think it's been one of the best things of the year. I think Cody and Kevin, you know, it's a shame that this is a TV match because this really feels juicy, man. I really think it's going to be an awesome matchup between Kevin and Cody. But yeah, I think Kevin is definitely worthy of being on this list. And next up, I got Bayley in the number 7 spot. She's just been the best woman of the year. You know, her. You know, I wasn't crazy about the Rumble, but you know, the fact that Bayley won it, I think it really saved it for me. I think it was a refreshing pick. I think it was, you know, someone that really deserved it. I think Bayley as a babyface, you know, works, you know, a lot better. Yeah, I mean, she had the best women's match of the year at WrestleMania. She even got some good stuff out of Piper Niven. I thought that was a really underrated match. Even, you know, what really, you know, got her in this top 10 is, you know, she was able to take, you know, kind of a lethargic opponent in Nia Jax. And even though the match got off to a rough start, you know, she really made that match interesting. You know, the running powerbomb on Nia, it's got to be the most impressive, you know, spot of the year, you know, from the women's side of it. It was an incredible spot right there. But yeah, I like Bayley, man. You know, she's everything good about women's wrestling. You know, you could tell she grew up loving the business. And yeah, very multidimensional. And yeah, I think she's improved her look as well. I mean, she's not in the shape that she used to be in, but yeah. So I got Bayley at number 7. I got AJ Styles at number 6. So yeah, I think what really did it for me was, you know, AJ really boosted his conditioning, you know, and then I think some of the ferocity, the aggressiveness, you know, this whole year, whether it's against LA Knight or against Cody, you know, really resonated with me. Just a sense of urgency to, you know, just remind everybody that he still has it. You know, even though he's getting up there in age, you know, he's still, you know, maybe the best. And you know, it's a shame that he didn't win the belt. I think the belt would have been validation that, you know, that he still has it. But yeah, I mean, just what AJ's done to keep himself relevant. And I wish he would. you know, try to protect those ankles, man. It seems like the ankles have really caused them a bit of issues over the years. But hey, you can't take it away from AJ. The two matches against Cody, the swerve where he's about to retire and then he attacks Cody. I think that was one of the best things done this year, and definitely the most inspirational, I think, workout video of the year was AJ with the ice bath at his home. The two Georgia boys going at it at Backlash. I like how they kind of blended, everything that they had in common with AJ and Cody. And it goes back to the days where, Dusty made his way to, the Atlanta area with WCW, and they kind of tied that in. And Cody and AJ never crossed paths, and they finally did. So you got to have AJ. AJ's going to be on this list just because of that. At number 5, we got Randy Orton. So man, I think Randy had a good year. I think he came back, surprisingly, just more muscular. I mean, you get the feeling that he put a lot of work into restructuring his body, to kind of, compensate for the back surgery. So he definitely got himself into, better shape. I mean, he's heavier than he's ever been, but it's a solid, 200 and I guess he's like almost 300 pounds, 385 pounds, 285 pounds of muscle. But yeah, Orton looked rejuvenated this year. Yeah, he definitely needed, an extended break to get that passion back. So yeah, I mean, when you're looking at Randy Orton's, demeanor now, like compared to 10 years ago, I think he just looks so much more engaged in present day. And I think the matches have been good. I think the opponents have been, stellar. And Randy's had some really fun moments this year. Even in the Royal Rumble match in that 4-way, like I really thought, because he had such an impact at War Games, at Survivor Series when he returned, that he might possibly be in the main event of WrestleMania. But I mean, he wasn't really used, the way I was expecting. I really thought he would at least, be in the championship picture a little bit more frequently. But, he was able to really, put over a lot of the younger guys, whether it be Logan, whether it be Gunther, the stuff that he's going to do with Kevin. I think he could ride the wave to WrestleMania. And, I really thought, because of the history, him and Cody would have done some more stuff. But, he's just been a nice little friend and a nice little supporting player. I think this is, this might sound crazy, but I'm going to say that this is Randy's best year. I was going to say since 2004, but I think, to be fair, it's probably his best year, definitely in the last decade. I think that's definitely fair. So I got Randy Orton at number 5. At number 4, I'm going to go with Damian Priest. I think the dude is just very similar to Sheamus. I think he's naturally just a likable guy. I think he's, learned from his mistakes. And, I mean, in the documentary, this dude actually said that he was a horrible human being, like 10 years ago. And, he's definitely flipped the switch. He's definitely gotten better shape. Triple H even went up to him and just congratulated him when he won the belt. He's like, man, you just got into awesome shape. And yeah, I mean, really, when you look at the way he was moving compared to Seth at Money in the Bank, it's clear, man. This guy is a hell of an athlete. He's got like really, really good combat skills. He's got a good martial arts background. I like what I've seen. I think we're still a ways away. I think some of the things I've heard his matches is he's been so well present. The presentation's been so good as a heel within the Judgment Day that I still think the fans are kind of warming up to getting behind him. But I think he proved at Survivor Series that that is coming. I think he kind of worked that crowd to a way where he got more people invested as the match went on. But I think we're still a ways away. I think this is a good year for him. The Money in the Bank cash in, I think execution wise, it's one of the best cash-ins I think they've ever done. I think because it was at WrestleMania, it was just very well structured, very well timed out. The creativeness was definitely there. So I got Priest in the number 4 spot. At number 3, I'm going to go with Drew McIntyre. Yeah, you know what, man? This top 3 is top 3, top 4. It's really tough to. It's a pretty competitive race. I mean, I see some people that have Drew as number 1. so let's just go from start to finish. Drew's performance at the Rumble is going to be memorable because of the Punk stuff, and he was in the top four. He won the Elimination Chamber. He was in the Elimination Chamber the whole way. And it actually surprised me that he won that match, and then he basically beat Seth in a sprint because Seth was hurt. So, give him credit. He won the championship in front of fans. So you were definitely happy for him, even though Punk took the moment away from him. And then, the Clash of the Castle, another great main event from him in Scotland. I think him and Priest really had a good match there. I think some of the botches are what people are going to hold against it, but it was definitely a memorable match, especially the stuff that they did with Punk at the end of that thing. Then he wins the Money in the Bank ladder. I mean, he wins the Chamber and the Money in the Bank in the same year. How many guys have done that? I just don't know. So, maybe you can make the argument that he should be at least top two. And then the trilogy with Punk, I think it was the feud of the year. It's really the only trilogy we had, at least for the WWE. I think the chemistry definitely got better and better as the thing went on. And then now he's attacking Sami Zayn. And, looks like he's going to transition a lot of his anger to Sami. I don't think Drew will, be in the main event of WrestleMania this year, but we'll see. You never know. So Drew definitely had a good year in terms of mic skills, in terms of creativeness, in terms of taking that injury and just making it feel real. The tension between Drew and Punk. You didn't expect it. Drew wasn't in anyone's top five of guys you wanted to see against Punk. And for this to be the only thing Punk had this year, and to have it be the feud of the year, the best Hell in a Cell we've seen, some people might even argue in 20 years. I think it's probably the best Hell in a Cell since Triple H and Taker from WrestleMania. I think that's the fairest thing I could say about it. But Drew had an incredible year. You could definitely argue he should be high. He's definitely in the top three. Top three, no matter how you look at it. Number two, I'm going to go with Gunther. All right, so I think what Gunther had this year is, the consistency. Like, if you're going to ask me, like, who consistently had, the best quality of matches, I think it's Gunther. The problem. All right, so the argument against Gunther is, I think a lot of the guys that love him, that a lot of guys that don't even like WWE, that would watch the company because of him. I think the opponents really weren't their cup of tea. Like, for example, I know a lot of people wanted to see Gunther versus Dragunov, in Berlin, because it had such international appeal. And I think a lot of people skipped the show because he was facing Randy again. Randy's more of a WWE methodic style. It's totally different from, an international strong style. So, I think that's the argument against Gunther. Some of his opponents just were a little bit too, WWE style for some people, including Priest. I think a lot of people still look at Damian Priest like he's kind of, still kind of trying to make a name for himself. And I don't think he's really earned everyone's respect yet. So, but hey, no matter how you look at it, I think the Gunther matches, were quality. And he even stole the show at WrestleMania again, for the second year in a row against Sami Zayn. At least on night one, I think that was by far, the best wrestling match on that show, even though I wish it could have been booked a little bit, differently, to be fair. But, the guy's been a hell of a champion. So he ends up losing to Cody at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view. So, definitely you knew he was going to be treated like the lesser champion. And, they kind of use that in the storyline, that the pressure of being champion is getting to him because he lost to Cody and he's not, accepting responsibility of, filling that void as champion on Raw. You even see Priest looking at him at Survivor Series like it was getting in his head. But still, look, I think everybody knew Cody was going to be the face of the company, as soon as this year started. So. But hey, man, like Gunther still had a good year, man. I don't know if it was as strong as last year's when he was the Intercontinental Champion. It's probably not as good. But hey, I still think it's good enough to be number two because of the consistency on the premium live events. I think he's had the most consistent year. And then at number one, I got Cody. It's no surprise here. I think Cody wrapped up the MVP at WrestleMania. I think, that just the way it was executed, the celebration, everything going into it with, the fans actually fighting for Cody, the way they got behind Cody here, was unbelievable. This whole run, man. Like when you look at the way they treated Cody at Full Gear 2021, and then you fast forward, to now, it's really one of the more incredible journeys we've seen one guy have. But I'm just gonna end it right here, man. Cody will be the MVP. I think it's definitely been fun, man. It's definitely been good. I mean, everything here you can enjoy. The match quality, the mic skills, the star power. The fans are, they're nowhere near, getting sick of this guy or turning on him yet. And that's, I was going to compare it to Shawn's reign, and still, like Shawn, the fans started turning on Shawn by the time he got to Survivor Series, and they really haven't started turning on Cody yet. But in some ways, I think the reign has been very similar to Shawn's reign in terms of the quality. I mean, I would still go with Shawn. I think Shawn's reign still would be above this when you're looking at WrestleMania to Survivor Series. Especially in the SummerSlam spot. Like if you look at the Vader match, I'm definitely going to go with the Vader match over the Solo match. But at the same time, I might go with the AJ matches, over the British Bulldog matches. I mean, I think that's fair. I think, Cody's, some of his other matches against Logan, against Gunther, against Kevin, I think they were all good, really, really good. Maybe you can't say that they were great. But yeah, that's a weird comparison. And I mentioned that too, because I feel like Shawn, was wrestling in tag. He wrestled the tag match in the July spot. So there's a lot of similarities there in terms of the longevity of the reign and, the performances. I think you've definitely gotten, the consistency and the title feels very credible. It feels huge. And I think that Backlash title defense really made the belt, feel special, feel important. And so, yeah, I definitely got to go with Cody at number one. I think it's no surprise. I got him at number one. Hell of an MVP race. I definitely think a good year for WWE. From the premium live event quality, it's definitely not as good as last year. But still, I think in terms of, making things feel special and interesting at certain parts, it's definitely been a good year. Definitely better than a lot of years, from last decade. So let's just end it right there, guys. That's the WWE 2024 Pay-Per-View Rewind. So just to wrap it up, match of the year, I'm going to go with Cody and AJ from Backlash. The premium live event of the year, no surprise, I'm just going to go with WrestleMania 40. And then the MVP of the year, I'm going to go with Cody Rhodes, and we'll end it right there.